Many therapists run virtual practices for the freedom it provides, for saving on overhead, and because they believe in the value of online therapy. And I agree. I love online therapy. I actually talk to my own therapist on the phone most of the time. But in this marketing landscape, it's actually pretty difficult to be a virtual therapy practice without some kind of location associated with your business. And that's what I want to get into today. Hey there, I'm Kristie Plantica, and I'm the founder of Place Digital, a boutique marketing agency for therapists. This is Practice Marketing Insider. Each week, I examine one piece of outdated or overblown marketing advice for therapists and explain why it's inaccurate and what you should be doing instead. If you have a virtual therapy practice and you still want to compete online, you will need some sort of location. We do work with some virtual-only practices at Place Digital, but they still have offices for marketing purposes. Today, I'm going to explain why having a location now is more important than ever, even if you're a virtual practice. To understand the importance of a location, you have to understand how Google thinks about therapy. We all know that therapy is a service, and other services like therapy, whether that's HVAC installation, dentistry, masonry, accounting, Google assumes that all these things have a localized intent. A localized intent means that a searcher wants something that is in their immediate area. Foundationally, this is how Google is built. The algorithm is built around the idea that people searching for certain services want a result that is local to them. The issue with therapy is that that's not often how therapy businesses are run these days. Back in 2020, all practices were online, and since then, many therapists have decided to keep their practices exclusively online. But Google still hasn't updated their thinking on how therapy businesses are often run. And Google doesn't care. They still think, and maybe many users do want, a therapist that they can see in person. So if you don't have a location associated with your therapy business, Google is highly unlikely to rank your business. A lot of virtual therapists think, well, if I serve my state, there's so many more people in my state. There's way more opportunity at the state level than at the city level. But Google isn't the only one who assumes that therapy is delivered locally. Therapy seekers do too. Keyword research tells us that there are always more city-based searches than there are statewide searches. So by targeting a city instead of your whole state, you actually will be able to reach a lot more people. Having an office plays out even more on Google Maps. If you don't know, I'm obsessed with Google Maps. This is how our clients at Place Digital get a large portion of their leads. If you're sleeping on Google Business, you are seriously losing out on potential clients that you could be working with. People love Google Maps. Google loves Google Maps. AI loves Google Maps. Actually, when I've been searching on ChatGPT recently, doing some research for our clients, I've noticed that Google Maps results show up more prominently than websites. I believe that a large part of this is because of Google Business Reviews. I want to do a whole separate episode on Google Business Reviews because I think they are so important and generally avoided by therapists for obvious ethical reasons. But regardless, they're important, and Google and AI love citing these and using them as a ranking factor. Another important ranking factor on Google Maps is proximity to the searcher. For example, let's say I'm looking for a coffee shop. There are tons of amazing coffee shops where I live. One might have higher reviews than the one that's a block away from my house, but Google's more likely to show me the one that's closer to me. For a coffee shop, that makes a lot of sense. I'm probably in need of some caffeine, sooner rather than later. But with therapy, that doesn't make as much sense. I'm okay driving a ways to a therapist if I think they're going to be a better fit for me or someone in my family. This is another way that Google doesn't understand therapy in the context of Google Maps. But it's what we're working with when we're doing SEO and optimizing on Google Maps. We have to play into Google. We don't get to make the rules. So if you don't have an address associated with your Google business profile, you can never play into the proximity ranking factor. I've seen therapists try to get out of this by marking their profiles as service area businesses. This is a setting that you can select on Google Business. So instead of showing you as a dot on the map with your address, they'll have you select the whole service area that you represent, which for many online therapists, they just select their state. This is not a way to get out of having an address associated with your Google Business profile. Not only does this make you ineligible for the proximity ranking factor, but most therapists do not list themselves as service area businesses. If the therapy industry was an industry, in which everybody listed their businesses as service area businesses, then you could probably get away with it. But service area businesses are more for services that work in a certain area, but their customers don't go to their office. For example, a plumber. We don't go to the plumber's office. The plumber comes to our house. So a service area business category makes sense. But therapists with offices are not going to say that they're a service area business unless they're doing house calls, which is pretty rare in the therapy industry. Because the therapy industry is not a service area business, that is not a way to get out of having an office. You might be hearing all of this and be a little bummed out if you're an online therapist. And I get it. I'm sure you love the lifestyle of not having to commute, being able to work in the comfort of your own home, and saving on overhead. And you can have an office without going there. There are different ways to have an address associated with your Google business listing. I'm not going to get into the specifics on how to actually have an address and an office as an online therapist because Google business regulations are changing quickly. It's becoming more difficult to get Google business listings verified, especially if it's clearly a part-time situation, if that. But I do think it might be worth considering going back in person, even if it's only one day a week. More and more people are craving that in-person connection. And if you're only working online, that is an automatic no for some clients, even ideal clients that you know would be a perfect fit. If they don't want to do online, they're not going to work with you. That being said, I've heard from some of our clients that a therapeutic relationship might start in person, and after rapport has been established, then the client is comfortable moving to virtual. So having an office could be not only a marketing advantage, but a therapeutic advantage as well. It's a really, really competitive market. So anything you can do to help your practice be more appealing to potential clients, that's probably worth the money. We're in a different era of marketing, and you may have to adjust how you do business and how you market yourself online. So there you have it. Another myth exposed. Your virtual practice does need an office, at least for SEO and AIO purposes. Google thinks therapy is local. They prioritize city-based results over statewide ones. They rank based on proximity to the searcher. And without an address attached to your Google business profile, you're essentially invisible on Google Maps, which is where a huge portion of therapy leads come from. The service area business workaround doesn't work for therapists. And while you can technically have an address without actually going there, it might be worth considering offering in-person sessions at least part-time, since more people are craving that face-to-face connection. And it could be the competitive edge you need. And that's it for this week's episode. If you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Kristie_PlaceDigital. If you're interested in working with me and my team, you can head over to placedigital.com. I'm Kristie Plantinga. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.